A husband, a wife, and 2 lovers. This ending will change everything. Alex returned home earlier than expected. From a distance, he noticed the bedroom light was on, even though he distinctly remembered turning it off in the morning. As he approached the house, an uneasy feeling crept over him. It was too quiet. Emma, his wife, always left the TV on or played music. But now the house felt dead. Opening the door, Alex felt his heart pound harder. On the living room table was a glass of red wine. Just one, not 2. Beside it lay an expensive men's watch he had never seen before. Slowly, he picked it up, realizing it wasn't his. The air carried a faint aroma of cologne unfamiliar to him. He climbed the stairs, feeling as if time slowed down. What was waiting behind the bedroom door? What was this suffocating pressure gripping him from his fingertips to his head? Alex opened the bedroom door and froze. On the dresser lay an open envelope. Next to it was a silver heart-shaped pendant. It all seemed as though his wife had been expecting someone else. Carefully, he picked up the envelope, removed the letter, and read, "Thank you for yesterday. I haven't felt this alive in a long time. See you tomorrow. Jason." Alex heard the front door open again. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. It was Emma. Alex threw the letter back onto the dresser, his fingers trembling with anger and confusion. He turned just as Emma began climbing the stairs. She stopped in the doorway of the bedroom, her face reflecting a mixture of surprise and alarm at the expression on his face. "You're home already?" Her voice sounded foreign to him. She glanced at the pendant on the dresser and the letter beside it. "Who's Jason?" Alex didn't yell, but his voice was tight, brimming with restrained fury. Emma froze. Her gaze dropped as though trying to buy a few seconds to think of an answer. It's not what you think," she finally said, stepping into the room. "Really? Then what is it? A letter? A pendant? Whose watch is downstairs?" His questions came rapid fire. Emma clasped her hands in front of her, as though shielding herself from an invisible threat. "Jason is my coworker. It's just a thank you gesture for helping out at work," she replied. "Thank you for yesterday? See you tomorrow? You expect me to believe that?" Alex's gaze didn't waver, his eyes burning with suspicion. Emma fell silent, her face pale. At that moment, her phone lit up on the nightstand. The message was brief but piercing. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Jay." Alex grabbed the phone, ignoring her attempts to stop him. "So this is your Jason? He's texting you?" He held the screen in front of her face. Emma stepped back. Her voice quivered. "Alex, you don't understand." "Then explain it to me. Why is he texting you? And why are his things in our bedroom? What's going on here?" Alex stood in the bedroom doorway, trying to process what lay before him. His heart pounded so loudly it felt like the sound filled the entire house. The room smelled faintly of vanilla, the scent of candles Emma loved to light in the evenings. But now, the ambience felt almost mocking, given the evidence strewn before him. The letter, the pendant, the watch. Everything screamed that someone else had been here. A man? Alex picked up the letter again and reread the words now etched into his memory. "Thank you for yesterday. I haven't felt this alive in a long time. See you tomorrow. Jason." The name, Jason, echoed in his mind like a sinister melody. Who was he? A coworker? A friend? Or someone far closer? Footsteps in the hallway interrupted his thoughts. Alex heard the front door close. It was Emma. She was climbing the stairs, unaware of what awaited her. He managed to hide the letter, but the pendant remained on the dresser, a silent witness. Emma entered the room, her expression shifting slightly as her eyes landed on Alex. Her gaze quickly flitted to the pendant, and for a split second, her face changed. That fleeting expression didn't escape his notice. "Oh, you're home already?" Her voice sounded calm, but Alex detected tension in her tone. He suspected she was trying to play the role of the usual, loving wife, but her eyes betrayed her unease. "Whose pendant is this?" Alex asked directly. His voice was quiet, but carried restrained indignation. Emma glanced at the pendant, then at Alex. "It's a gift," she replied, avoiding eye contact. "A gift? From whom?" Alex took a step closer, trying to gauge if she could look him in the eye. From a coworker. It doesn't mean anything. Her voice wavered slightly, betraying her nervousness. Doesn't mean anything? Does the letter also mean nothing? He pulled the letter from his pocket and threw it onto the bed in front of her. Emma froze. Her face went pale, but she quickly composed herself. You don't understand, she began, but Alex interrupted her. No, I don't understand. So explain it to me. Why is he mentioned here? What are these meetings? And who the hell is Jason? His voice grew louder, the tension mounting with each second. Emma clenched her hands into fists. It's not what you think, she said, attempting to stay calm. But that only infuriated Alex more. Then what is it? You want me to believe this is just a friendly note? His eyes burned with emotion. The silence was broken by Emma's phone lighting up on the nightstand. Alex couldn't help but glance at the screen. The message was short, but clarified everything. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Jason. Alex grabbed the phone before she could stop him. So this is him? You're Jason? He's texting you? His voice brimmed with anger. Emma tried to explain. It's not what it looks like. But Alex wasn't listening anymore. He threw the phone onto the bed and stepped to the window, taking deep breaths to calm himself. You're not even trying to come up with something believable. Now I want the whole truth, he said, turning back to her. Emma bit her lip, her eyes welling up with tears. Jason is my coworker. We spent a lot of time together because of a project, and yes, he became infatuated with me. But I didn't encourage him, she said, her voice trembling. Alex looked at her skeptically. That's it? You're telling me he just decided to give you pendants and write these messages for no reason? Emma remained silent. Her silence was worse than any confession. Alex stared at Emma in silence. Her words hung in the air, tearing apart everything he had thought was stable and real in their marriage. His heart pounded so loudly it felt like the sound filled the entire house. Tell the truth. His voice was cold and tense. No extra emotion, just the restrained fury he was holding inside. Emma, lowering her head, took a step forward. Her hands clenched into fists, as if trying to keep herself together. She sighed, then gathered the courage to speak. I had an affair. Those words hit like a heavy hammer. Alex froze for a moment, trying to process what he'd heard. A hot wave of pain and indignation surged through his chest. For how long? His voice was steady, but a storm of emotions loomed beneath it. A few months, Emma spoke quietly, almost in a whisper. Her eyes dared not meet Alex's. It started when we worked on a project together. I don't know how it happened. At first, it was just conversations, and then she trailed off, unable to finish. And then? Alex raised his voice, taking a step toward her. And then what, Emma? You decided our marriage wasn't worth anything anymore? No. She shook her head emphatically. I didn't want it to go this far. It was a mistake. I regret it. Alex took a deep breath, trying to keep his anger in check. He paced the room, struggling to process what he just heard. His fists clenched involuntarily. A mistake, he finally said, stopping and looking at her. A mistake is forgetting to lock the door or turn off the lights. This is betrayal. Emma bit her lip, her eyes filled with tears. I know what I did was horrible, but it was a mistake. I didn't mean for this to happen, Alex. It was a foolishness that means nothing to me. It means nothing? Alex spun around sharply to face her. It means nothing? Then explain this letter. These messages. Why is he still texting you? Emma sighed as if gathering the courage to say something else, but just then, her phone lit up again on the nightstand. Alex grabbed it before she could. On the screen, he saw the message. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Jason. He inhaled deeply, gripping the phone tightly in his hand. So it's him? You're Jason? He's texting you? Emma took a step forward, but Alex raised a hand, stopping her. Don't say anything. You're still talking to him. Still. It's over, she insisted. I told him I couldn't do this anymore. When? Before or after he sent this message? Alex threw the phone onto the bed. His voice was calm again, but in that calmness lay a greater threat than any yell. Emma averted her gaze, saying nothing. Her silence spoke louder than words. Alex sighed and turned toward the window, staring into the quiet night outside. His mind churned with a single question. Should I forgive her? Or is this the end? She approached him, reaching out. Alex, I love you. I know I've done a terrible thing, but I don't want to lose you. Please give me a chance to make it right. Alex didn't turn to her. How can I trust you? You've destroyed everything we built over the years. How do you plan to fix that? Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't back down. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll prove to you that it was a mistake and that I'll never let you down again. Alex remained silent. He didn't know whether to believe her or just walk away, leaving her alone with her tears and remorse. Standing by the window, he looked out at the peaceful night, a stark contrast to the storm raging within him. Emma's words, her tears, her confession, they all felt distant, as if he were watching his life from the outside. He slowly turned to face her. She stood in the middle of the room, tired, defenseless, her face pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Alex remembered how he used to look at her with love and admiration, but now he saw someone who had shattered his trust. I need time to think, he said finally, his voice cold and detached. Emma looked up at him, desperate. Alex, please, don't go. I can't be here right now, he replied, his eyes flicking to the bed where the phone and the incriminating message lay. I don't know how to trust you. I just can't. He grabbed his jacket from the chair and headed toward the door. Emma rushed after him, grabbing his arm. Please, don't do this. We can fix this. I love you. Alex stopped. Her words stung, resonating painfully in his mind, but they couldn't change his decision. He gently pulled his arm away. Emma, you've already destroyed everything. I need time to figure out if I can even forgive you. He walked out, leaving her alone in the quiet bedroom. Closing the door behind him, Alex descended the stairs, grabbed his car keys, and stepped outside. The night air was cold, but it felt like a release after the suffocating atmosphere inside. He didn't know where to go. His mind was in chaos. Alex got into the car and started driving, paying no attention to the direction. The city streets were nearly empty, illuminated by the faint glow of a few streetlights. About an hour later, Alex parked near a local park. It was their favorite place to walk when they had first started dating. Memories flooded him, amplifying the pain. He got out of the car and sat on a bench near the lake. Questions swirled in his head, questions he couldn't answer. Could he forgive her? Could they rebuild what was broken? And was it even worth trying? Meanwhile, Emma sat in the bedroom, curled up on the edge of the bed. Her hands trembled, and the phone lay beside her. She didn't know what to do. Alex was gone, and now all she could do was wait to see if he would come back. Her mind raced with fear and shame. Emma knew her actions might cost her not only her marriage but the entire life they had built together. Feeling the weight of her guilt, she dialed her friend Carla. Carla, I need help, she began, her voice weak and broken. Alex returned home around 3 a.m. His thoughts swirled like a storm. Memories, Emma's confession, Jason's messages, all blending into a cloud of pain and doubt. He parked in the driveway and sat in the car for a long time, staring at the dark windows. The house felt unfamiliar, almost hostile. The key turned in the lock slowly, as if Alex himself wasn't sure he wanted to go inside. The hallway was silent. Emma's coat hung on the rack, and next to it were her favorite red heels, the ones she wore to work. These small details hit him hard, reminding him of the life they'd shared until now. He climbed the stairs to the bedroom. The door was ajar, the lights off. He assumed she had fallen asleep, but when he entered, he saw her sitting on the edge of the bed. She held a cup of tea, her gaze distant. She looked up at him, and he saw her expression shift, from fear to faint hope. You came back, she said softly, almost in a whisper. I came back, but that doesn't mean I've forgiven you. Alex stood in the doorway, keeping his distance. His voice was restrained but steely. Emma placed the cup on the nightstand. I know. Thank you for coming back. Alex crossed his arms. This time, I want the whole truth, Emma. No half-truths, no lies. If there's even a sliver of hope for us to fix this, start with that. Emma sighed and lowered her head. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. I've already told you the worst, but it's really over. Jason, he kept trying to stay in my life, but I told him it's finished. You have to understand that. Alex stared at her in silence. Her words sounded convincing, but something inside him wouldn't let him fully trust her. You told him? When exactly? He asked, stepping closer. Last week, Emma replied. Then why is he still texting you? Alex pulled the phone from his pocket and showed her the latest message. Emma froze. Her face went pale, and for a moment, it seemed she wouldn't find the words. I don't know. He doesn't understand. He just won't let go. And have you really tried to let him go? Or have you left the door open just enough? Alex's eyes bored into hers. Emma opened her mouth to respond, but at that moment, there was a knock at the front door. Both froze, exchanging confused glances. Who could it be at this hour? Alex slowly descended the stairs, his heart pounding. He opened the door to find Carla, Emma's friend, standing there. Her face was tense, and her eyes hinted she knew more than she should. I need to talk to you, she said, looking at Alex before glancing at Emma, who had followed him downstairs. Carla, what are you doing here? Emma's voice was strained. Carla stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. She looked directly at Emma. I think it's time you told him the whole truth before someone else does. Carla stood in the middle of the living room, glaring at Emma. Her eyes sparkled with tension, and her jaw was clenched as if she were holding back a flood of emotions. Alex watched silently, trying to piece together what was happening. The room was heavy with silence. Carla, what are you talking about? Emma stepped forward, but Carla didn't budge. Her gaze was cold. You know exactly what I'm talking about, Carla replied, her voice quiet but sharp. You need to tell him the truth before it gets even worse. Alex stepped closer, his patience wearing thin. What other secret, Emma? I've had enough of your half-truths. If you want me to take you seriously, then speak now. Emma looked cornered. Her hands clenched nervously, and she struggled to maintain control of a situation slipping away. Carla, I don't know what you're... Don't know? Carla scoffed bitterly. Then I'll say it. Alex, she hasn't ended things with Jason. And it's not just emotional. Those words cut deep, like a knife. Alex stared at Emma, searching her face for the truth. Is that true, Emma? Emma hesitated, her eyes darting away from his. It's not like that. Carla's exaggerating. Carla crossed her arms, her gaze unwavering. Am I? Tell him, Emma, or I will. Alex turned back to Emma, his voice steady but cold. Enough. I want the truth, and I want it now. Emma's shoulders slumped as tears filled her eyes. She knew the moment she spoke, there would be no turning back. Exaggerating? Carla spread her arms in frustration. Then tell him where you were last Thursday when you said you were working late. Alex stepped forward, his voice sharp. What does she mean, Emma? Where were you? Emma stayed silent, but her silence spoke louder than any words. Alex felt his patience evaporate. I'm done with the excuses. Tell me the truth. Emma raised her hands defensively. Fine, I'll tell you, but you have to hear me out. Last Thursday, I met Jason. It was supposed to be the final conversation. I wanted to end things. I told him there was nothing between us anymore. But, her voice faltered. But what? Alex almost yelled. He didn't take it well, Emma said quietly. He tried to convince me that I was making a mistake. He wanted to continue our relationship. Carla interjected. Convince you? Do you know what he told me? That you went to a hotel with him, Emma. Her words landed like a thunderclap. Alex felt his body tense, his fists clenching instinctively. Is it true? Did you go to a hotel with him? Emma broke into tears. I lost control. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen, Alex. I love you. Love? Alex took a step back, his voice filled with bitterness. How can you talk about love when you've so easily destroyed everything we built together? Carla, watching Emma cry, delivered the final blow. You always thought you could control everything, but now you've lost Alex. And it's your fault. Alex could no longer stay in the house. He turned abruptly and headed for the door. Emma ran after him, grabbing his arm, Please don't go. We can fix this. He pulled his arm away sharply. You destroyed everything, Emma, and now it's beyond fixing. Stepping outside, Alex breathed in the cold night air. His thoughts were chaotic, but one thing was clear. He couldn't stay near her right now. The cold air stung his skin, but Alex barely noticed. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes fixed on the road, though he had no destination in mind. Anger, pain, betrayal, all churned within him like a storm. He tried to think, to find some logic in the situation, but the more he recalled Emma and Carla's words, the stronger the wave of rage became. Jason. That name now echoed in his mind like a call to action. Alex pulled over at a roadside diner. Inside the car, there was silence, but his thoughts screamed like an angry crowd. I have to find him, Alex thought. It seemed like the only thing that made sense, getting answers. Not from Emma, not from Carla, but from the man who had invaded his life and torn it apart. Alex pulled out his phone and started searching. He remembered Emma mentioning Jason as a colleague, and even showing him a photo from a work event. In the photo, Jason stood tall and self-assured, with a piercing gaze and a smug smile. At the time, Alex hadn't thought much of it. But now, he found Jason's name in Emma's phone book, a contact he had once accidentally saved. His finger hovered over the call button. What would he say? How would he start the conversation? But fear and doubt had no place in him anymore. He pressed the button. The line rang. Once. Twice. Then a voice, calm and slightly groggy. Hello? Jason. Alex nearly hissed his name. Yes. Who is this? Jason's voice sharpened, as if trying to place the caller. It's Alex, Emma's husband. Silence on the other end. Alex could almost hear Jason's sharp intake of breath. Then, Alex, I didn't expect to hear from you. I need to meet you. Right now, Alex said, his voice tense but controlled. Look, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't care what you think. Meet me in 20 minutes at the park near Central Square. And if you don't show up, I'll find you myself. Alex hung up before Jason could respond. The phone slipped from his hand onto the passenger seat. Alex stared out into the empty night, his mind focused on one thing. Getting the answers he needed, no matter what it took. The park was almost empty. Alex stood by a bench under the dim glow of a street lamp, his arms crossed, his gaze fixed ahead. Only the sound of his breathing and the gentle wind broke the silence. Jason arrived 15 minutes later. He wore a dark coat, his face betraying unease despite his attempt to appear confident. So, here I am. You wanted to talk, Jason said, stopping a few feet away from Alex. Alex slowly turned his head, his stare sharp like a blade. He stepped closer, his eyes never leaving Jason's. What was between you and Emma? Alex began bluntly. Look, it's not that simple. Jason started, but Alex cut him off sharply. Skip the excuses. Tell me everything. Now, or I'll make this difficult for you. Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. Fine. Emma and I got close at work. It started innocently, but over time, things got complicated. I never meant for it to go this far. Go this far? How far did it go? Alex's fists clenched involuntarily. Jason hesitated. We met outside of work a few times. Yes, it was a relationship, but I thought she was unhappy with you. She told me. What exactly did she tell you? Alex stepped closer, his voice even deeper. That you'd grown distant, that she didn't feel the love she once did. She said you both needed something new. Jason paused, then added. But she always loved you. She was just confused. Alex felt another wave of pain crash over him. He stood still, trying to keep himself under control, but it was getting harder. Are you finished? Alex asked, his voice cold as ice. Jason nodded. I know that doesn't excuse anything, but if you want to know, yes, I loved her. And if she comes back to me, Alex moved swiftly, grabbing Jason by the collar and pinning him against a tree. You will never go near her again. Do you hear me? Never. Jason looked at Alex, startled but not afraid. His eyes held a mix of guilt and defiance. I can't promise that. Alex released him, stepping back. This is the last time you interfere in my life. If I find out you've approached her again, you'll regret it. Alex turned and walked back to his car, feeling drained. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. As he drove home, his phone vibrated. It was a message from Carla. You need to know this isn't the whole truth. Call me. Sitting in the car, Alex stared at the glowing screen. Carla's message burned into his mind, adding to the chaos of his thoughts. You need to know this isn't the whole truth. Call me. His fingers hovered over the call button. Did he really want to know? Could he handle more than he already had? But something inside urged him to keep digging, to uncover the truth, no matter how painful. He pressed the button, and within seconds, Carla's voice came through. Alex. Her tone was serious, devoid of her usual sarcasm or humor. Talk, Alex replied curtly. Carla sighed. I get that you're in a place where you don't want to listen to anyone, but you need to know everything. Only then can you make the right decision. Carla, I don't have time for your moral lessons. If you know something, say it now. Alex's voice was firm and harsh. There was a pause on the other end. Jason wasn't the only one. Her words hung in the air like a knife poised to strike. Alex's grip on the phone tightened. What do you mean, Carla? His voice dropped, the tension in it palpable. Emma. There was someone else before Jason, Carla admitted, her voice heavy with regret. Alex's heart sank. He stared into the darkness outside his car, the weight of Carla's words crushing him. Who? He demanded, his voice barely a whisper but filled with restrained fury. I don't know his name, but it happened last year. I didn't want to get involved, but, Alex, you need to confront Emma. She hasn't been honest with you for a long time. Alex ended the call without a word. The silence in the car was deafening. His world, which had already started to crumble, now felt like it was collapsing entirely. His hands gripped the steering wheel as his mind replayed Carla's words. Jason wasn't the only one. Emma had betrayed him before, and now everything they had built seemed like a lie. The road ahead was dark, but it reflected the turmoil within Alex. He knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The truth had more layers, and he was determined to uncover every one of them, no matter the cost. These words cut into Alex like a knife. He froze for a moment. What do you mean? I didn't want to interfere, but Alex, this isn't the first time. You're angry at Jason now, but if you knew what happened before… Carla, speak clearly. Who else? Do you remember Michael? He was your mutual friend back when you first got married. He came to your parties a few times. He and Emma were close, too close. I thought it was just friendship, but later, I found out it was more than that. The air grew heavier. Michael, a man Alex once considered a friend, someone who had seemed warm and approachable. Are you sure about this? Yes. I saw them together. They acted like there was nothing between them, but I knew. And then Emma admitted it to me herself when we'd had too much to drink. She said it happened a long time ago and didn't matter. But now, seeing what's happening with Jason, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Alex set the phone down on the dashboard and ran his hands over his face. His mind was a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. He knew he had to confront Emma, but would it make a difference? She'd just find another excuse, another way to hide the truth. Carla, why are you telling me this now? He asked, picking up the phone again. Because I'm tired of watching you try to save something that's already gone. She doesn't respect you anymore, Alex. And I think you deserve better, Carla said firmly. His heart pounded. Could Carla be sincere? Or was she exploiting the situation for her own reasons? Alex returned home just before dawn. The house felt even quieter than usual. He opened the door and stepped inside, careful not to make unnecessary noise. His eyes immediately fell on Emma's belongings near the stairs. She was still home. He climbed the stairs and entered the bedroom. Emma was sitting on the bed, her eyes red from crying. She looked at him with a glimmer of hope, but Alex shook his head. You didn't tell me the whole truth, he began. Emma tried to speak, but Alex raised a hand, stopping her. I know about Michael, and now I'm starting to realize this isn't about a mistake. This is about who you've become. Her expression shifted. Instead of remorse, anger flared in her eyes. Carla, right? She's always hated me. And now you're choosing to believe her over me? This isn't about Carla. It's about us. About how you keep doing the same thing over and over, always with some excuse. But I can't keep turning a blind eye. Emma stood, her voice rising. You're willing to destroy everything because of what someone said? We could have fixed this, Alex. We could have been happy again. Happy? Alex scoffed. How can we be happy when everything we had was built on lies? Silence filled the room. Alex turned toward the door, his posture straight, though he felt shattered inside. Where are you going? Emma asked, her voice trembling. I need to be alone. For good this time, he replied, closing the door behind him. As Alex stepped outside, his phone buzzed with another message. It was from an unknown number. If you want the full truth, meet me tomorrow. We both deserve this. Jason. Alex stood by the door, clutching the phone in his hand. The message from Jason pulsed in his vision like an invisible threat. But instead of reacting immediately, his thoughts turned back to Carla. Her earlier tone and persistence nagged at him. Why was she so invested in exposing all this? Could she have ulterior motives? Alex wasn't ready to trust anyone blindly anymore. Tomorrow would bring answers, but whether he was prepared to face them was a question only time could answer. Alex dialed Carla's number. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, she answered. Alex. Her voice was groggy yet alert. We need to talk. And not over the phone, Alex said firmly.
Now?
Carla asked, surprised. Yes, now. I'll be at your place in 20 minutes. Without waiting for a response, he ended the call. Carla lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. Alex parked his car outside and sat in silence for a moment. The events of the past days played out in his mind. How it all began with a letter and had now spiraled into something far more convoluted. When Carla opened the door, she was in a robe, her expression a mix of surprise and curiosity, though she didn't seem upset by Alex's sudden intrusion. What's going on? She asked, stepping aside to let him in. I think you need to tell me the truth, Carla, Alex said, not sitting down. His voice was firm and direct. The truth? About what exactly? She crossed her arms, her tone cold. About you. And why you're so invested in destroying my marriage, he said, stepping closer, his gaze piercing. Carla forced a smile, but it was tense. I'm not destroying your marriage, Alex. Emma did that herself. Maybe, but you're meddling too much. I want to know why. What do you gain from this? His voice grew louder, and Carla subtly stepped back. She looked away, as if struggling with an internal battle. You want to know why? Fine. Because I couldn't stand watching you suffer anymore. I saw how Emma lied to you, how she used you. And yes, I had my reasons. What reasons? Alex pressed, locking eyes with her. She couldn't evade him any longer. Because I've always wanted to be in her place, she blurted out, her words hanging in the air like a thunderclap. Alex froze. He wasn't prepared for such a revelation. What? Was all he could manage. Carla sighed. You've always been more than just a friend to me. I saw how hard you worked for your marriage, how much you gave, while she toyed with your feelings. And yes, it hurt to watch. Alex took a step back, his mind racing. Could Carla have been so obsessed that she wanted to ruin his marriage? And what did this mean for him? Could he trust what she'd said about Emma? You knew about Jason. You told me because you wanted me to leave her? Alex asked. Yes, Carla admitted. But not just for that. She doesn't deserve you, Alex. His anger was giving way to confusion. He no longer knew whom to trust. His already unstable world had become even more fragile. You said you knew more about Emma's relationship with Jason. What else are you hiding? Alex asked, trying to stay composed. Carla hesitated, her confidence faltering. I know he's still trying to hold on to her. And it's not just the messages. He's been threatening her. She's afraid to tell you because she thinks you won't understand. Threatening her? How? Alex leaned in closer, his voice sharp. He said he'd expose all her secrets. It wasn't just an affair, Alex. They funneled money from her projects together. If you found out, it could ruin her career. Alex stood silent, his thoughts racing. If this was true, it was no longer just about betrayal. This could destroy everything they had built over the years. At that moment, his phone buzzed again. Alex pulled it out, and saw another message from the same unknown number. We both know you won't get the truth from Carla or Emma. I'll be waiting tomorrow. Jason. Back at home, Alex sat at his desk, staring at his laptop screen. A document with his signature glared back at him like a living thing. Everything he had read so far had already turned his world upside down. But this was a new level of betrayal. How could she have done this? He didn't even remember signing anything like it. Could she have forged his signature? Alex felt anger swell in his chest, but with it came anxiety. If this was true, what consequences could it bring? He carefully reviewed more files. The correspondence between Emma and Jason detailed how they discussed transferring funds, using company resources, and, most damningly, how to cover it all up. Alex's name was mentioned several times, as though he had been complicit. Unable to contain himself any longer, Alex stood abruptly from his chair. His decision was clear. He would no longer stay in the dark. It was time to make Emma face the consequences of her actions. With determination in his step, Alex headed upstairs to the bedroom, where Emma was sitting, her face pale and her eyes hollow. "Emma," he said coldly, "we need to talk." Emma was in the kitchen when Alex entered the room. She was making tea, looking calm, even slightly carefree. Her demeanor only fueled his anger. "We need to talk," he said sharply. Emma turned to him, her face showing mild surprise. "What's wrong?" "You know what's wrong," Alex said, tossing a flash drive onto the table. "I found this." Her eyes flicked to the flash drive, but quickly returned to him. "And what's this supposed to be?" "Evidence. Letters. Documents. Everything you've been hiding from me. Everything you've done behind my back." His voice was calm, but there was a dangerous edge to it. Emma sighed and sat at the table. "Alex, I don't know what Jason told you, but he's a manipulator. Do you really want to believe someone who's been trying to destroy us from the start? This isn't about Jason. It's about you." Alex's anger bubbled beneath the surface. "You used me. Those documents have my signature. You dragged me into this without my consent." Emma looked at him, her expression unnervingly composed, almost too confident. "Do you really think I could do something like that?" "I don't know what to think anymore," Alex replied. "Fine," she said, her voice steady. "Then let's clear this up. Show me those documents." Alex opened his laptop and turned it toward her. Emma leaned in, her eyes scanning the files. For a moment, her face was unreadable, then she started laughing. "You think this is my work? Alex, this is a forgery. And right now, you're falling into Jason's trap," she said, leaning back in her chair. "A forgery?" Alex frowned. "Yes. He tried this before, but I stopped him. Now he's using you to strike at me." "But it won't work," she said confidently, her tone starting to unsettle Alex. "How can I believe you?" he asked. "I can prove it. But you'll need to give me a little time," she said. Emma disappeared into the bedroom and returned with a small notebook. She placed it on the table and opened it. "Here," she said, pointing to a note. "This is from my meeting with the company's lawyer. I knew Jason might try something like this, and here's proof that I was acting against him." Alex glanced at the notes. They seemed convincing, but could they be just as fabricated as Jason's documents? "Why didn't you tell me about this earlier?" he asked. "Because I was afraid you wouldn't understand. And now I see I was right," she said. Her voice carried a note of sadness, but Alex detected a hint of confidence beneath it. As Alex tried to process Emma's explanation, his phone vibrated. A message. It was from Jason. "You've made a mistake, Alex. But if you want to know who's really been using you, I can prove it. Meet me tonight." Alex gripped the phone, his heart racing. Could Jason have more information? Or was this just another attempt at manipulation? He clenched the phone in his hands, rereading Jason's message over and over. "Who's really been using you?" The phrase echoed in his mind like an ominous warning. But now wasn't the time to be distracted by Jason. He had to get to the bottom of things with Emma first. She seemed to have an answer for every accusation, yet not once had she given him a reason to fully trust her. "Emma," he said, his voice steady but firm, "if you want me to believe you, we need to go through everything. Together. No more secrets, no more evasions." Emma met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "Fine," she said. But you have to promise me something. If I prove to you that I've been telling the truth, you'll let this go. You'll trust me again. Alex hesitated. Could he promise something he wasn't sure he could keep? We'll see, he replied. As they sat at the table, Alex realized one thing. No matter what she showed him, no matter how convincing her evidence, the doubt in his heart wouldn't easily fade. And the message from Jason lingered in his mind like a shadow, reminding him that the full truth might still be out of reach. The spiral of deception. Alex's gaze flicked between Carla and Emma. Carla's words echoed in his mind. You were part of this, even if you didn't know. It wasn't just a revelation. It was a verdict that pulled him further into the maelstrom of uncontrollable events. Explain, he demanded, his voice low but brimming with restrained fury. What do you mean? What part of this? Carla held his gaze, her eyes heavy with seriousness and a trace of sadness. Emma used your name and signature to legitimize certain financial transactions. On paper, you were formally involved in projects that turned out to be illegal. If this comes to light, you'll bear the consequences as much as she will. Alex felt the ground beneath him crumble. His breathing grew heavier as the weight of Carla's words settled in. He turned toward Emma, who stood by the window, her arms crossed, her expression cold yet defensive. Is this true? Alex asked, his voice quieter now but cutting. Emma didn't immediately answer. Her eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no sign of defiance or confidence, only a flicker of guilt. Alex, it's not what you think. Answer the question. His voice thundered, silencing her attempt at evasion. Emma sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping. Yes, but I didn't have a choice. Jason, he forced my hand. He threatened to expose things about the company, things that could have ruined us both. I had to protect us. Protect us? Alex repeated bitterly. You didn't protect us. You used me. Carla interjected, her voice firm. Alex, she's lying. She wasn't forced. She and Jason were in this together from the start. I've seen the messages, the plans. She only started worrying about protecting you when things began falling apart. Emma spun toward Carla, her voice sharp. You don't know anything. You're just jealous, always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Jealous? Carla snapped back. Jealous of what? Watching you destroy everything good in your life. No, Emma. I'm here because Alex deserves the truth, something you clearly can't give him. The tension in the room was suffocating. Alex pressed a hand to his temple, his mind reeling. His life, career, and marriage. All of it teetered on the brink of collapse. He felt trapped, like a pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. Enough, Alex said finally, his voice calm but laced with finality. He turned to Emma. I trusted you. I believed in you, even when everything told me not to. But now I see that trust was a mistake. Alex, wait, Emma reached out, but he stepped back. No, he interrupted. You've lied too many times. And now, because of you, I might lose everything I've worked for. He turned to Carla, his expression a mix of exhaustion and resolve. And you should have told me sooner. If you really cared, you wouldn't have waited until everything fell apart. Carla looked down, guilt flashing across her face. You're right, but I wanted to protect you too, even if it was messy. Alex moved toward the door, grabbing his jacket. I'm done with this. Both of you have manipulated me in your own ways. Now it's my turn to take control. Emma's voice broke as she called out to him. Alex, please, don't go. We can fix this. He paused at the door, his back to her. Fix it? Emma, there's nothing left to fix. With that, he stepped outside into the cold night air, leaving both women behind. As Alex sat in his car, his phone buzzed again. It was another message from Jason. If you want the truth, come alone tonight. I'll give you everything you need to know. Alex stared at the screen, his mind a battlefield of doubt and anger. One thing was clear. He wasn't going to let anyone else decide his fate. If Jason had answers, Alex was determined to get them, no matter the cost. Alex's heart raced as the room turned into a battlefield of words and silence. The unexpected arrival of Jason only thickened the tension. Each player in this twisted game stood frozen, Their faces a mix of shock, anger, and something darker, fear. Jason, exuding confidence, scanned the room with an amused glint in his eyes. So, this is Cozy. The betrayed husband, the meddling friend, and the unfaithful wife. Sounds like the start of a great story. Cut the theatrics, Jason, Alex snapped, stepping toward him. Why are you here? Jason shrugged, leaning casually against the wall. I'm here to help you see the bigger picture, Alex. The one you've been too blind, or too trusting to notice. Emma, standing by the kitchen table, crossed her arms defensively. Her voice cut through the thick atmosphere. You shouldn't be here. Leave now. Jason ignored her, locking eyes with Alex. Do you really think you know the whole truth? That I'm the only problem here? Spit it out, Alex growled. Jason smirked. Fine. Emma, do you want to tell him, or should I? Emma paled, her confidence visibly crumbling. There's nothing more to say. You've already done enough damage. Jason chuckled darkly. Ah, the classic deflection. You see, Alex, what she's really afraid of is that you'll find out how long she's been playing you. The financial fraud? That's just the tip of the iceberg. Carla, who had been silently observing, stepped closer. Stop dancing around the truth, Jason. If you have something to say, say it. Jason turned to her, his smirk widening. Oh, Carla, always the righteous one. You've been dying to get in Alex's good graces for years, haven't you? But even you don't know everything, do you? Carla's face tightened, but she didn't respond. Jason returned his focus to Alex. Do you remember signing anything, Alex? Anything suspicious at all? Alex clenched his jaw. No, I don't sign documents without reading them. Jason's smile widened. Exactly. You didn't sign them. She did. Emma forged your signature. Alex's breath caught in his chest. He turned sharply to Emma, his voice dangerously quiet. Is that true? Emma shook her head quickly. No. He's lying, Alex. He's trying to turn you against me. Jason pulled a small envelope from his coat and tossed it onto the table. Go ahead. Open it. You'll find all the evidence you need. Alex hesitated, but his trembling hands eventually tore the envelope open. Inside were copies of financial documents, emails, and a forensic analysis of the signatures. His name appeared everywhere, but the expert's note concluded that many signatures didn't match his handwriting. His world spun as he looked up at Emma, his eyes filled with betrayal. You forged my name? You used me? Tears welled in Emma's eyes. Alex, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I had no choice. No choice? Alex's voice rose. You always have a choice, Emma, and you chose to lie. To betray me. Jason stepped back, watching the chaos unfold with satisfaction. You see, Alex, the thing about Emma is that she's a master manipulator. She manipulated me, too, at first. But then I learned to play the game better. Emma spun to him, her voice trembling with rage. Shut up, Jason. You don't know anything about us? Jason raised his hands mockingly. Oh, but I do. And you know what? I didn't come here just to expose you, Emma. I came here to warn Alex. Warn me? Alex asked, his voice laced with skepticism. Jason nodded. You think Emma's the only one who's been lying to you? What about Carla? Carla's expression hardened. Don't try to drag me into this, Jason. Jason smirked. Why not? You've been meddling in their marriage for years, haven't you? Feeding Alex little pieces of truth just to keep him on your side. But you never told him the whole story. Enough. Alex's voice cut through the tension, silencing everyone. He turned to Carla, his face a mixture of disbelief and frustration. Is he telling the truth? Have you been hiding things from me? Carla looked at him, her resolve faltering. Alex, I was trying to protect you. Emma, she's not who you think she is. And neither are you, Jason added smugly. Alex stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I can't deal with this right now. You've all turned my life into a game, and I'm done being a pawn. He grabbed his coat and stormed toward the door. Alex, wait. Emma called, her voice desperate. He paused, looking back one last time. You all want me to trust you, but none of you have earned it. I'll find the truth on my own. With that, Alex left, slamming the door behind him. As Alex drove aimlessly through the city, his phone buzzed again. Another message from Jason. You've taken the first step. Now let me show you everything. Meet me tomorrow night. Alex threw the phone onto the passenger seat, his chest heaving with emotion. The road ahead was dark and uncertain, but one thing was clear. He was done trusting anyone but himself. Jason stopped in front of Carla. He tilted his head, staring deeply into her eyes. You've always been intriguing. Always knew more than you should have. Carla didn't look away. I know more than you can imagine, and I'm not afraid to speak it out loud. He smiled. I like that. Your courage. His voice softened, almost a whisper. But you're not as flawless as you try to appear, are you, Carla? Carla replied in the same tone. If you think you can intimidate me, you're mistaken. Emma abruptly interrupted their exchange of glances. Enough. Both of you are forgetting that this isn't your fight. Alex raised his hand, silencing them all. It's not even my fight anymore. It's chaos. Jason turned back to Alex. Then let me reveal this chaos. He pulled out a phone and placed it on the table. This device contains recordings that could change your view of everyone in this room. Emma grabbed the phone, but Jason stopped her by grabbing her wrist. You don't want him to see this, do you? Emma pulled her hand free. You have no right to show it. Carla intervened. Are you scared, Emma? Because if he sees it, it's the end. Alex looked at all three of them. His patience had run out. He picked up the phone and entered the password Jason quickly dictated to him. Several video files appeared on the screen. Alex played the first file. The image loaded, showing Emma and Jason signing some papers. She was laughing while he said something about a guaranteed profit. The next video was even worse. Carla stood beside them, also signing documents. Alex turned off the video, his hands trembling. You're all in on this. You're all lying. At that moment, the lights in the house suddenly went out. Darkness enveloped the room, and Alex heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone else was in the house. What's that? Carla asked, her voice tense. Alex gripped the phone in his hand, his heart pounding. He felt the worst was yet to come. Darkness engulfed the house, but Alex no longer feared it. Chaos had ruled his life for so long that another unexpected guest or new light couldn't break him completely. In the dark, he felt a strange calm. It was time to end this game. Who's there? Alex's voice rang out clearly and steadily. The footsteps in the hallway stopped, only for a moment. Then, from around the corner, a figure emerged. It was Michael, an old acquaintance of Alex and Emma, whom Carla had mentioned earlier. He looked tense, holding a folder in his hands. Michael? Alex asked. Now you're here too? Can I call anyone in this story honest at all? Michael sighed and stepped closer. I'm here to put an end to this, Alex. I have documents that can clarify everything. He placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were the same documents Alex had seen before, but this time with clear notes and explanations. I was part of this, but only at the beginning. Then I realized Emma and Jason had crossed the line. They used your name and resources, but I didn't want you to suffer. So I gathered this data to help you clear your name, Michael said, looking at Emma. Emma froze, her face pale. That's not how it happened, Alex, she began. But Alex raised his hand, stopping her. Enough. You had a chance to tell the truth, and you didn't take it. Carla stood up, walked over to Alex, and placed a hand on his shoulder. Now you know everything. It's time to move on. After an hour of difficult conversations, Alex left Emma, Carla, Jason, and Michael in the house. He packed only what he needed and walked out, leaving them to sort things out among themselves. His decision was simple, to start a new life. A few days later, he handed the documents to his lawyer to fully clear his name. The case gained public attention, and Jason, along with Emma, faced the consequences of their actions. Alex moved to a new city, far from the chaos. In his new home, he found peace and a chance to start over. Life wasn't easy, but now he understood that honesty was the foundation of any relationship, and he was ready to wait for someone who would be willing to build that with him. What would you do if you were in Alex's place? Would you be able to forgive, or would you leave it all behind as well? Write your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your opinion.